The stars above the contested sector of space shimmered with a deceptive tranquility, masking the brutal reality unfolding below. The 3rd Earth Peacekeeping Battalion, a force of elite soldiers, had been deployed under the flag of the Galactic Council, tasked with overseeing negotiations between warring alien factions. It was meant to be a diplomatic mission, until it wasn't. Captain Elias Mercer had sensed something was off from the moment they landed. The Carnath and Volther, 2 rival species that had long despised each other, had suddenly agreed to peace talks far too easily. The moment Earth's soldiers set foot in the neutral zone, everything changed. The ambush came without warning. Hidden energy turrets sprang to life, vaporizing several of Mercer's men before they could react. A localized EMP blast disabled their comms, leaving them stranded as waves of Carnath warriors surged forward. Despite their elite training, the humans were outnumbered 20-1, their weapons struggling to fire against the alien jamming fields. Mercer fought like a man possessed, his rifle dropping Carnath assailants one after another. He saw Lieutenant Carter go down, his throat slashed by a Volther blade, and another soldier, Ramirez, torn apart by plasma fire. Every instinct screamed to fight, to break free, but the numbers were overwhelming. They had walked into a trap. By the time the last shots were fired, the battlefield was littered with human bodies, their weapons ripped from lifeless hands. The surviving members of the 3rd Battalion, those who had not been killed outright, were dragged toward waiting transport ships. Mercer, bloodied and barely conscious, was among them. The alien commanders stood above the prisoners, their expressions a mixture of contempt and cruel amusement. General Exor Vash, the Carnath warlord, towered over Mercer, his reptilian features twisting into a grin. "You humans think yourselves lords of the stars," he hissed. "Yet here you kneel, broken like any other species." Mercer spat blood onto the alien's boots. "Big mistake." Exor Vash laughed. "No, Captain Mercer. The mistake was believing your kind had any real power." He turned to the assembled soldiers. "You are no longer warriors. You are examples. Proof that Earth is not untouchable." The Volther joined in, their skeletal frames draped in ceremonial robes, their hollow eyes drinking in the scene. One of them, a high-ranking figure known as Archon Velos, gestured toward a hollow drone hovering nearby. "The entire galaxy will see this," Velos sneered. The mighty humans humbled. Mercer glared up at him. "You don't know what you've just done." Velos smirked. "Oh, we do. We have just declawed the beast before it could bear its fangs." As the prisoners were dragged onto the waiting ships, the alien leaders reveled in their victory. They had done more than just capture Earth soldiers. They had struck at the heart of humanity's reputation. For too long, the humans had been seen as untouchable, their military strength whispered about in hushed tones across the stars. Now, the galaxy would see them defeated, powerless, humiliated. Or so they thought. High above the battlefield, a single human recon drone, hidden among the wreckage of destroyed ships, transmitted a message back to Earth. "They have been taken. Earth will come." The gravity of the situation hit Earth like a shockwave. Across every news network on every screen, the message was clear. Human soldiers, the finest warriors Earth had ever produced, were now prisoners of a ruthless alien coalition. And their suffering was being broadcast, in stark detail, to every corner of the planet. Mercer's face had been an icon of resolve. His squad was trained to endure anything. They had withstood the worst that war could throw at them. But this was different. The footage of their torture, broadcasted live from a secure coalition facility, left nothing to the imagination. It was hard to look away. Their captors had gone beyond cruelty. They had sought to destroy the very spirit of these soldiers, aiming to break them both physically and mentally. As the footage flickered off, Earth's leaders gathered in an emergency meeting, their faces a mask of grim determination. No one spoke for a moment, the weight of the decision ahead pressing down on them like a heavy, suffocating blanket. They all knew what had to be done, but the cost of action was impossible to ignore. "Enough is enough," President Elena Reyes finally spoke, her voice cold but fierce. We will not let this stand." She turned to the assembled military brass, her words cutting through the tension in the room. "Prepare our forces. Our soldiers will be freed. No more will we allow this alien coalition to believe they can break us. If they think this is the end, they are gravely mistaken." The room fell into a brief, charged silence before one of the generals, Admiral Gregory, spoke. "Madam President, our forces are already stretched thin. We're deployed across numerous sectors. A full-scale strike on coalition strongholds would require mobilizing the entire military. It will take time to—" "We don't have time," the president cut him off. "They've made their move. We make ours." She leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of the table with the weight of her decision. We will act swiftly, decisively. Let the galaxy understand that we protect our own." With that, the room buzzed with energy. Within hours, Earth's military command was activated. Fleet commanders scrambled to finalize their preparations. Even the civilian population, though distraught and angry, rallied behind their leaders. The nation was united by the singular force of righteous anger. Deep in Earth's secure military facilities, the final phase of planning was underway. The first thing Earth would need to secure was the element of surprise. Satellite systems began scanning the galaxy's far reaches, locating every asset the alien coalition had deployed. At the same time, Earth's intelligence network went into overdrive, feeding crucial real-time information about the enemy's movements and plans. In parallel, Earth's fleet began preparing for the mission. Advanced warships, larger, faster, and more powerful than anything the alien coalition had ever seen, were readied for deployment. These warships carried weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets, each vessel armed with high-energy plasma cannons, electromagnetic railguns, and adaptive shielding. Their sleek, imposing forms stood as symbols of humanity's will to survive and conquer. On the ground, elite special forces units were selected. These soldiers were trained in the most brutal conditions known to mankind and beyond. No enemy had ever withstood their might in close-quarters combat. They would infiltrate the alien strongholds, extract the prisoners, and dismantle the coalition's power structure with lethal precision. The first wave of Earth's offensive came without warning. Stealth drones, cloaked in the void of space, drifted through the cold darkness, seeking out enemy targets and disabling communications with surgical precision. The coalition was thrown into chaos as their forces scrambled to regain control. Earth's warships, powerful and fast, arrived at the coalition strongholds, their engines blazing with the fury of mankind's wrath. With a crackling hum, they launched their initial salvo, plasma blasts that tore through coalition ships like they were made of paper. The enemy fleet scrambled to retaliate, but Earth's forces were a step ahead, using advanced AI systems to predict and outmaneuver every move. The onslaught was overwhelming. Ships of the alien coalition were torn apart in seconds, their crews scrambling to survive in the wake of Earth's superior firepower. Yet, the real battle was on the ground. Elite Special Forces squads, including Mercer's surviving comrades, had already infiltrated enemy territory. Their mission was twofold: extract the prisoners and dismantle the leadership of the coalition. They moved through the shadows, silent and deadly, using their training to take down countless enemies with ruthless efficiency. Every step closer to the facility that held their comrades brought them nearer to the ultimate goal: justice. Inside the coalition's hidden facility, the human soldiers, exhausted and tortured, lay in their cells. Despite everything they had endured, a flicker of hope remained. Mercer's squad knew that their mission would come to this, not just a rescue, but a moment of vengeance, a moment where the galaxy would see that humanity was not to be trifled with. And then they heard it, the sound of boots on the ground, the sound of salvation. Their captors were unprepared for what came next. With unparalleled precision, Earth's special forces stormed the facility, cutting through the alien guards with lethal efficiency. As the doors to the holding cells were breached, Mercer's eyes locked with those of his comrades. For a moment, nothing mattered except the knowledge that they had been found, they had been saved, and justice was at hand. The battle within the facility raged, but the tide had turned. Earth had come for its people, and nothing would stop them now. The battle had been swift, brutal, and decisive. Earth's forces had torn through the alien coalition with a precision and power that left the enemy in utter disarray. The prisoners were freed, and the coalition strongholds were crumbling under the weight of the human onslaught. But as the dust began to settle and the echoes of conflict faded into the cold vastness of space, the true implications of Earth's victory started to unfold. President Elena Reyes stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. The bright dots of Earth's forces scattered across the expanse like fireflies in a dark night. The war was far from over, but the first major strike had been an undeniable success. The prisoners were back, The threat had been pushed back, but there were costs to consider: diplomatic, strategic, and political. "We've sent a message," General Caleb Whitfield said, his voice steady but tinged with the urgency of the moment. "But we must prepare for the backlash. The coalition won't simply accept this defeat." This was only the beginning. Elena nodded, her eyes narrowing. "What's the next step, Caleb?" "We've shown them our strength. Now we need to turn that into leverage." "I agree," Caleb said, pointing to the map. "The coalition has suffered a major blow, but they are not the only power in this galaxy. We've made powerful enemies in the process, enemies who now see humanity as a threat. We'll need to bolster our alliances, secure new ones, and prepare for whatever the coalition throws back at us." "Where do we stand with the rest of the galaxy's factions?" Elena asked, her tone calculating. "They're watching," Caleb replied, "and many of them are concerned. Some see this as a signal that humanity is ready to challenge the balance of power in the galaxy. Others, particularly the more isolated species, are preparing for their own defense in case we turn our attention their way." Elena's gaze hardened. "Let them watch. They're going to have to understand one thing: Earth is not backing down." Across the galaxy, the repercussions of Earth's decisive strike were already being felt. The diplomatic channels were flooded with messages, both urgent and anxious. The United Galactic Council, a coalition of species that had once operated under a fragile peace, had been deeply shaken by the sudden, violent escalation. They had expected humanity to remain a passive player on the galactic stage, useful but uninvolved. Earth's unexpected assertiveness had shattered that expectation. Among the Council, factions were beginning to form. The more aggressive species, particularly those with large military fleets like the Zorith Dominion and the Elxir Combine, were openly supportive of Earth's actions, eager to see a more assertive and less compliant Earth in the future. They saw humanity as a useful tool in their ongoing ambitions, ready to expand the borders of their influence with the help of Earth's formidable military might. But the more diplomatic and pacifist factions, like the Kelshari and the Valnor Alliance, were alarmed. They had long promoted a policy of non-intervention, striving to keep the peace in a galaxy that was constantly teetering on the edge of chaos. The sudden emergence of a new power on the galactic scene had made them question their own security and the very principles they had fought to uphold. In the immediate aftermath of Earthstrike, the Council called an emergency session. Delegates from across the galaxy gathered in a vast marble chamber, their eyes fixed on the central podium where the human representative, Ambassador Noah Kincaid, stood. Noah's face was calm, his posture unwavering despite the intense scrutiny. He had been chosen to represent Earth in the Council not just for his diplomatic skill, but for his ability to navigate the murky waters of galactic politics. Now he stood before them, knowing full well that his every word would be dissected and scrutinized. The chamber fell silent as the head of the Council, the Zorathian delegate, began to speak. "We have all witnessed the brutal and unnecessary escalation of violence by the human forces." The Zorathian leader's voice echoed across the chamber, his tone stern. "Your actions have disrupted the peace we have fought for over millennia. You have no place here, and we will not tolerate such aggressions in our galaxy." Noah remained calm, his voice even and controlled. "We are not here to disrupt peace. We are here to ensure that peace is respected. Our soldiers were taken, tortured, and broadcasted to the galaxy as examples. We acted in defense of our own, and we will continue to do so. Earth will not allow itself to be a victim again." The room erupted in murmurs. Some of the delegates nodded in agreement, while others hissed in displeasure. But Noah's words had struck a chord. He had made it clear: Earth would no longer be subjugated. They would not stand idly by as others trampled their sovereignty. Back on Earth, the president stood once again in the war room, staring out at the blue orb of their planet. There was no turning back now. The coalition's power had been shattered, but the galaxy's reaction was only just beginning. New threats loomed on the horizon, and while Earth had proven its might, there was still the question of how they would navigate the new balance of power. "We've made a statement," Elena said, more to herself than anyone else. But the real war is just beginning. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. General Whitfield spoke again, his voice steady but filled with the weight of what lay ahead. And that's exactly why we must stay ahead of them. We need to be ready for everything. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's place in the galaxy had irrevocably changed. No longer a silent observer, Earth had cast its lot with the powers of the universe, and the consequences of that decision would echo through the stars. The Galactic Council session had ended in a flurry of activity. Noah Kincaid returned to Earth's embassy in the heart of the intergalactic capital, his mind heavy with the implications of the diplomatic strife he had just witnessed. The once harmonious alliance between species was fraying at the edges. Earth's actions had irrevocably altered the galaxy's delicate balance of power. But what truly unnerved Noah was the realization that the Council had no real answers. The pacifists, the militarists, and the neutral factions all seemed as divided as ever, and now the human presence was undeniably disrupting the status quo. Earth had made its first bold move, and the galaxy was responding with equal intensity. It was no longer just about military dominance. It was about survival, and how humanity would navigate a universe that was now beginning to fear and respect them. Back on Earth, President Elena Reyes met with her inner circle, the senior members of the Earth Defense Council and strategic planners. The war with the coalition was far from over, and their victory was only a stepping stone to an even greater challenge, securing their place in the galaxy while defending their sovereignty against a growing number of hostile forces. "What's the status on the border defenses?" Elena asked, her tone sharp with urgency. General Caleb Whitfield was the first to respond, his voice thick with the weight of the situation. "We've accelerated the construction of the new defense platforms along the outskirts of Earth's solar system. But it's not enough. We're going to need more ships, more weapons, and more personnel. We've already seen the reactions from the galaxy's more aggressive factions. They'll come for us, sooner or later." "And what about our allies?" Elena asked, her brow furrowing. "Who's standing with us?" "There are a few," Caleb replied. "The Zorth Dominion is eager to align with Earth, as are the Elxir Combine and the Tarvani Empire. They see us as a valuable asset. But the Valnor Alliance, the Kelsharii, and other pacifist factions are wary. They're looking for ways to pressure us into negotiating peace, but we both know that peace, as they understand it, would come at the cost of our freedom." Elena's gaze hardened. "We won't give in to that. We need to ensure that Earth's voice is heard, loud and clear. We cannot back down from this moment." Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, the coalition's remnants were regrouping. After the humiliating defeat, the surviving factions had retreated to their respective homeworlds, nursing wounds both physical and political. But the coalition's leadership had not crumbled. Far from it. The brutal efficiency of Earth's strike had been a wake-up call, one that had shaken their resolve, but also fueled a desire for revenge. In the depths of coalition space, Supreme Commander Orvik stood in front of a holographic display of Earth's defense fleet. His yellow eyes flickered with cold determination. "We underestimated them," Orvik muttered. "The humans are more dangerous than we ever imagined. They are not merely a nuisance to be crushed. They're a threat to the stability of the entire galaxy. But we will not allow this to stand. We will rebuild, and we will strike back." A figure cloaked in shadows stepped forward. It was the Draetor Counselor, a species of highly secretive manipulators known for their political scheming. "Your anger is justified, Orvik. But our strategy must evolve. The coalition needs new allies, new methods of warfare. The humans are not like the others we've faced. We will need to develop weapons, not only to challenge their fleets, but to weaken their resolve." "We'll find a way," Orvik said, his voice dripping with venom. "The humans think they've won a victory, but it's only the beginning. They have no idea what they've provoked." Back on Earth, the news was full of mixed reactions. The victory over the coalition had been hailed as a triumph for humanity's military prowess, but it had also raised concerns. Was Earth now a target for the galaxy's wrath? Were the alien alliances preparing for a final confrontation? It was clear that humanity had taken the first step in altering the galactic balance. But how would they sustain it? The president's office buzzed with activity as Elena reviewed reports from her intelligence agencies. The rest of the galaxy was mobilizing, and the political landscape was shifting. Allies and enemies alike were making their moves. No matter what happens next, we must be ready for anything, Elena said as she examined the latest data on the coalition's movements. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of Earth, and the galaxy will soon see the true nature of humanity. A sudden chime interrupted her thoughts. The communications officer entered the room, carrying a message from an unexpected source. "It's from Ambassador Noah Kincaid, ma'am," the officer said. "He's requesting an urgent secure channel." Elena nodded. "Patch it through." A moment later, Noah's face appeared on the screen, his expression serious but calm. "Madam President, we've got a situation." "What is it?" Elena asked. "The Zorith Dominion and the Elxir combined are already making moves to cement their alliances with us," Noah explained. "But there's a problem. While these factions want Earth as a partner, they're also seeking to control the direction of our future military actions. They want to leverage us, to make us part of their larger plans." Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "And what's their offer?" "They want us to commit to an offensive against the coalition remnants," Noah said, his voice low. "They're pushing for a full-scale assault, but I'm not sure we're ready for that. If we act too soon, it could escalate the situation into a galaxy-wide war." Elena stood and looked out the window at the Earth below, her mind racing. The decision ahead was crucial. We can't rush into another war, but we can't sit idly by either. We need to make our own path. The future of Earth and the galaxy depends on it. She turned back to Noah. "Tell the Zorith Dominion and the Elxir combine that we'll consider their offer. But Earth will move at its own pace, on its own terms." As she ended the communication, Elena knew one thing for sure. Earth's place in the galaxy was only going to get more complicated. And the choices they made in the coming weeks would determine not just their fate, but the fate of countless civilizations across the stars. The atmosphere in the Earth Defense Council's command center was charged with tension. President Elena Reyes paced in front of a holographic map of the galaxy, her fingers tracing the glowing lines that represented Earth's expanding sphere of influence. Though the recent military victory had solidified humanity's presence on the galactic stage, Elena knew this was only the beginning. What awaited Earth now was not just the threat of retaliation from the coalition, but also the complex dynamics of intergalactic politics. "Keep the fleet on high alert," she instructed, her voice firm. "We've made our mark, but now we have to anticipate the next moves. The coalition won't take this lightly." General Caleb Whitfield, standing at attention by her side, nodded. "We're prepared, ma'am. Our ships are ready, and we've already begun reinforcing key defense sectors along the frontier. But the Council's new proposition, that's something we need to discuss. The Zorith and Elxir are pushing for Earth to spearhead a coordinated strike against the remnants of the coalition. They're offering us more than just ships. They're offering us influence." Elena turned to face him. "And you think we should trust them?" Caleb hesitated, knowing the gravity of the question. "It's not about trust, ma'am. It's about opportunity. The Zorith Dominion is known for their technological advancements, and the Elxir Combine controls critical trade routes. If we align ourselves with them, we'll gain not just military strength, but economic leverage too." "Which also means we'll be tied to their interests," Elena countered, her eyes narrowing. "We can't allow ourselves to become pawns in someone else's game. Earth has always prided itself on independence, and we need to maintain that." But her thoughts drifted, and the silence stretched for a moment. Caleb was right. Earth needed to consider alliances, but only on their terms. No one could dictate their future. The moment passed, and Elena's mind shifted to the bigger picture. As she mulled over the decision, a soft chime interrupted her. Her assistant entered the room with a note, handed it to her, and left without saying a word. Elena glanced at the message, her eyes narrowing. It was from Noah Kincaid, the human ambassador to the Galactic Council. She read through it quickly. "Damn it," Elena muttered. "The Valnor Alliance is pressing us hard. They want us to back their peace efforts with the coalition. They see our military build-up as a threat." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Peace efforts? After everything that's happened? That's a bold move." "More like an attempt at control," Elena replied. "The Valnor think they can leverage Earth's desire for peace to dictate terms. But they're underestimating us." Elena sat down, the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. Earth's course would be determined not only by military strategy, but by the way they played the political game. She needed to outmaneuver the other galactic powers without losing their autonomy. Meanwhile, far from Earth's orbit, the galactic stage was shifting in unexpected ways. Ambassador Kincaid stood in a starkly modern meeting room aboard the Elxir capital ship, surrounded by representatives from various species. The atmosphere was formal but strained. The Elxir Combine was known for its intricate diplomacy, but even here, the tension was palpable. Noah's thoughts were heavy. The situation was rapidly evolving, and not in a way that boded well for Earth. The Elxir and Zorith were eager to build an alliance with humanity, but their motives were far from pure. They saw Earth as a means to an end, a way to tip the balance of power in their favor. "I'm telling you, Ambassador, this is our moment," insisted Cash, the Elxir representative. His eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. "The coalition is wounded, and their remnants are scattered. We have an opportunity to move in and secure the galaxy. Humanity's influence could tip the scales in our favor." "And what's in it for Earth?" Noah asked, keeping his tone measured. "You want us to lead a campaign against the coalition, but we're not interested in being a pawn in anyone's war. Earth will make its own decisions." The room fell silent at his words, and Noah could feel the tension rise. The Elxir were no strangers to power plays, and his defiance had caught them off guard. But he wasn't backing down, not now. Not after everything they had fought for. "You mistake my words, Ambassador," Cash replied coolly, leaning forward. "What we offer is an opportunity to establish Earth as a dominant power in the galaxy. The coalition's defeat is inevitable, but how it happens, who decides the terms, will determine the future. The Zorith have already agreed to our strategy. Humanity will have a voice, if you choose to accept it." Noah's gaze didn't waver. He knew there were no easy answers here. Humanity will make its own path, Cash. Don't make the mistake of thinking we'll follow the Zorith or anyone else. We'll decide the future of Earth. The conversation ended with little resolution, but Noah couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Earth was standing on a precipice, and the choices they made in the coming days would have far-reaching consequences. Back on Earth, Elena received the latest intelligence report. The Valnor Alliance had begun deploying peacekeeping forces along the coalition's former strongholds. The pressure was mounting on all sides. Earth was caught in the middle of a galactic struggle that could either secure their place in the stars or destroy everything they had built. Elena stood in front of the massive view screen in her office, staring out at the blue planet below. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting for Earth's future, its sovereignty, and its legacy in the galaxy. "We won't be anyone's tool," she muttered, her voice steely with resolve. "Earth will lead, or we won't lead at all." The storm clouds were gathering, and soon, Earth would have to decide whether to act in the shadows or step into the open and stake their claim in the galaxy. The winds of war and politics would shape their destiny, one way or another. The decision had been made. President Elena Reyes stood in the command center, her eyes locked onto the vast holographic display of Earth's immediate galaxy. The map showed not just military movements, but the political and economic lines that had now been drawn. Her thoughts raced, each one a sharp and piercing reminder of the path they had chosen. They were no longer a passive player in galactic affairs. Humanity was stepping into the fray, a force to be reckoned with. "All fleets are to be in position within the hour." General Caleb Whitfield's voice broke through her thoughts. "We have a narrow window before the coalition reorganizes. Once they do, they'll be too strong for us to take on alone. Our allies in the Zorith and Elxir are ready, but we need to act fast." Elena nodded, her gaze never leaving the hologram. "I understand. No room for hesitation. If we wait, we risk losing control of the situation entirely." It wasn't just the coalition's remnants they were facing. It was the uncertainty of their alliances. The Zorith had promised reinforcements, but the Elxer's involvement raised red flags. Their strategic aims often aligned with their own interests, but those interests didn't always match Earth's. Elena was well aware of the delicate balance they were trying to maintain, and the last thing she wanted was for humanity to become embroiled in a war that didn't serve their interests. "Any new intel from Ambassador Kincaid?" Elena asked, turning toward her comm officer. "Yes, ma'am," the officer responded. "He reports the Zorith are pushing hard for us to commit to their strategy, but Kincaid is holding firm. He's made it clear that humanity's participation in the Galactic Theater is non-negotiable. They're trying to play us like pawns. He's negotiating for more autonomy, but it's a delicate dance." Elena's lips thinned. Kincaid had always been a skilled diplomat, but this was a test like no other. The stakes were higher than they had ever been. The political and military currents in the galaxy were shifting, and Earth needed to control its own narrative if they were to survive the coming storm. She glanced back at the holographic display, where Earth's military ships were now in position, ready to launch. Their first target would be a coalition stronghold on the edge of their territory, a base they had failed to dismantle in previous encounters. It was a critical strike that would send a clear message to the remnants of the coalition, as well as to the galactic powers watching from the shadows. "All fleets are in position, President Reyes," Caleb reported. "We're ready to launch the strike." Elena took a deep breath, a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Do it. Let's make sure they understand that humanity is not a force to be trifled with." The strike was swift and precise. Earth's military had trained for this moment, and every fleet commander knew their role. The first barrage of missiles tore through the coalition stronghold's defenses, opening a path for the follow-up assault. Within minutes, the battle was over. The base, once a symbol of the coalition's power in the sector, was reduced to rubble. But as the dust settled, the uneasy silence that followed was palpable. The coalition would not take this defeat lying down. Their remnants were scattered across the galaxy, but they were still a formidable threat. Elena knew they would retaliate soon. The question wasn't whether they would fight back, but how, and who they would bring with them. As Earth's military ships regrouped, Elena received another message, this one more urgent. Ambassador Kincaid's voice crackled through the comms. "President Reyes, we have a serious situation. The Valnor Alliance has mobilized their fleets in response to our actions. They claim that humanity's aggression has undermined peace efforts with the coalition. They're pressuring us to pull back our forces immediately or face sanctions." Elena's eyes narrowed. The Valnor were notorious for their peacekeeping rhetoric, but Elena knew it was nothing more than a cover for their own expansionist desires. Their claim to peace was a convenient tool to manipulate and control galactic events. Humanity had just shattered that illusion. "Tell Kincaid to hold the line," Elena ordered. "We won't be intimidated by threats. The Valnor can say what they want, but we're not backing down. We're not going to be held hostage by their idea of peace. We've made our stand, and we're going to make sure it counts." General Whitfield stepped forward. "Ma'am, the Elxer have sent a message. They want to ensure Earth remains committed to the Alliance. They've also made it clear that they don't want to lose their advantage over the Zorith." Elena's expression darkened. She'd known the Elxer's political ambitions were part of their long game. They had their own plans, and Earth was merely a piece in their larger strategy. The idea of remaining tied to their alliance was starting to feel more like a liability than an asset. "I need to speak to Kincaid personally," Elena said, her voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. "Let's make sure we have all the information we need before we make our next move." As the comms officer patched through to Ambassador Kincaid, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was no longer a place of peaceful coexistence. It was a battleground, and humanity had just taken its first steps onto the front lines. The next few hours would determine whether Earth would rise as a dominant force in the galaxy or be consumed by the powers they had just begun to challenge. The fate of humanity and its place in the stars hung in the balance. "Prepare for the next phase," Elena said, her voice colder now. "We're not backing down. This is only the beginning."